Welcome everyone to my first game recap from Kragerø Chess. Just finished round one. I was playing an opponent by the name of Andreas Tenold, rated just over 2,000. And before this game, pairings went up less than an hour before, so I didn't really have too much time to prepare. But I did find a good handful of my opponent's games. Actually found his Lee Chess account as well. And I noticed that my opponent likes to play the Taimanov Sicilian, which is actually an opening that I like to play as black. So I decided to play e4 in this game, going into a Taimanov, which we did get after takes, knight c6, knight c3, queen c7. This is kind of the starting position of Taimanov. And here I opted for a really rare and tricky line. And I'll just go ahead and show in the database. I played the sixth most popular move here, queen to d3. Now, this is a line that I don't think I've ever played before, at least in a tournament. Maybe I've played it online. But the idea is really interesting. And at first, this move looks very dumb and counterintuitive because white's blocking the bishop and just bring the queen out early. But the idea in many lines is to play queen g3 and challenge the black queen on c7. And we're going to see how this plays out. So my opponent played knight f6, which is one of the main moves. I played knight d5, harassing the black queen. Queen drops back to b8, and now I play queen g3. And not only am I challenging the queen, but I'm also threatening the fork on c7. So black has to be really careful here. And if black trades queens, then I'm very happy to get these double pawns with open file, and I'm still threatening knight c7. And this is actually already very good for white. So instead, my opponent played pawn to d6, which was still kind of the main line of my preparation. And I went ahead and played bishop to e3, just preparing to get the rook to d1 and pressure the d-pawn even more. And here my opponent took a very long time before playing pawn to a6. And I'm pretty sure my opponent, of course, was out of his preparation. It's actually taking time, many moves after queen d3. But I think he took a long time on a6 specifically because there is a scary looking move for white, which did occur to me during the game. So move bishop to b6. And after pawn takes b5, knight takes b5, it's an interesting piece sacrifice because white's threatening bishop c7, and it's not entirely clear how black comes out alive. Now, I didn't go for this because I was still in my preparation after pawn a6, and I knew the top engine move. But I am curious, if we check the engine here, is this at all playable for white? No, it's not, because knight takes e4, queen... Wow, queen h4, rook a4. And the knight's defended, the queen's not getting trapped. I actually didn't see this during the game. It's a really cool resource for black. So yeah, instead of going into complete dubiousness, I played the standard move here, top engine move, knight d4. And it looks like white's wasted a little bit of time moving the knight back and forth, but black's also spent a move playing queen b8, which is not the most useful. And from this position, my opponent played bishop to d7. And I will say that I was prepared for pawn h5 in the game. And before the game, I looked at one line specifically, which was h5, f3, bishop d7, queenside castle, b5, takes, and queen f2. And this position was on my computer about 10 minutes before the game. So interestingly enough, what happened in our game, my opponent played bishop d7 first, and I was trying to figure out the differences between what I looked at before and this line, but we actually ended up transposing because I play f3, my opponent played b5, I took. Now it's important to understand here that if let's say I castle queenside, then b4 would chase my knight back and block in the bishop. So it's important to start with bishop d3, just so that I can come back to e2 and not block the bishop. And then my opponent plays h5, and I was happy to see this move because I quickly castle, and I knew that the engine gives white a small edge here. But more importantly, I thought this position is just a bit easier for white to play because black's committed to h5, so it's not likely black will safely be able to castle on the king side. And Also, the bishop is tied down to g7. The queen actually serves a really nice purpose on g3, pressuring g7 and d6. And it's not so clear what black is supposed to do here. And we're going to see very quickly how things just snowballed in my favor. Now, I think what black probably should have done during the game was play something like knight d7 and maneuver the knight to c5 or e5. But what was played was pawn h4, which I think is still okay, hitting the queen, provoking queen f2. And then here, my opponent played a very self-destructive move. Let me hide the notation just to avoid spoilers. But the thing to understand in this position is it's white who really wants to open the center because the king is on e8 and I'm already castled. And yeah, here my opponent played pawn d5, really just helping me achieve the goal of opening the position. And I'm pretty sure my opponent played this move because maybe he realized things are difficult, and sometimes the tendency is to try and trade down when you feel under pressure, just to try and simplify. And I'm sure he calculated takes, but he actually told me after the game that he missed my next move in this position. And the next move for white, I think once you see it, you'll realize like it's very strong. I played this out pretty quickly. But feel free to pause the video if you want to try and find the strong move here for white that my opponent overlooked. The move is bishop to e4, creating a situation where black is under a lot of pain because now the knight is pinned. Bishop's not defended on c6, so taking either minor piece runs into bishop takes c6 with check. And meanwhile, the knight's also attacked 3 times. So the position is already like really, really nice for white. And it's black who has to do major damage control. But the game's not over because my opponent still fights with queen to b7. We trade on d5, trade a lot on d5. Now we get a position where black is severely behind development, king's still in the center, and I play a kind of nice multi-purpose move here, bishop to g5. There's at least 3 purposes with this move: preventing black from castling, attacking the pawn, and also just freeing the e-file, preparing rook e1 with a deadly check. So things are very much in white's favor, but the game still continues. Pawn f6 was played. And now I thought for a little bit here, trying to decide between rook e1 check and bishop takes h4. Ultimately, I decided to take on h4. I was thinking if rook e1, king f7, and then after takes, there's lines where h2 is a little bit tender with the half-open h-file. So I decided just to take immediately and keep h2 better defended. Now this does allow black to castle, but then we went into a line that I actually calculated when I played bishop takes h4. So I dropped the bishop back to g3, and after bishop to d6, there's a pretty forcing sequence: takes, and queen c5 check, hitting the king, rook, and also pressuring the pawn. So I'm just trying to simplify, already up a pawn, trying to win a second pawn. And after queen c7 was played, I went ahead and took on d5. Now, I spent some time before I took because there's a few options for black to try and muddy the waters. For one, I wasn't 100% sure about this endgame after takes king b7. Even though white's up 2 pawns here, there are ideas for black to get counterplay with doubling and invading. But I was thinking I would play b4 here and just give the square for the king and get the rook involved. And this should be very promising for white. But we didn't go into that. Instead, my opponent played rook c6, which is also kind of a scary looking move, creating the battery, trying to win the c2 pawn, but also hitting h2 pawn. So black is winning back a pawn here. However, after queen f2, rook takes h2, and then I play rook d1. Everything's under control. I'm still up a pawn. And the major factor in the position is that the king on c8 is far less safe than my king on c1. And from here, the game continues. Rook to h8, queen d2, creating the triple battery, preparing rook d7. The opponent plays pawn g5, trying to save the g-pawn. And here I wanted to play rook d7 immediately, but I wasn't sure about the follow-up after queen b6. So I decided to start with queen to d3. just keeping some checking possibilities open. And here my opponent played rook h7. Now I should note my opponent was severely low on time, played this move with less than 30 seconds left. So he was just living on the 30-second increment. And when I first saw this move, I thought it was just an immediate blunder, like a game-losing blunder, because white has queen f5, and if king b7, rook d7, looks like it just wins the black queen. But I thought a little bit more and realized it's not so simple. If I go for this line, rook d7, it's actually a really nice counter shot for black here. Rook takes c2, and my queen is now overworked. If I take on c2, rook takes d7, black has won back the pawn. And if king b1, there is rook c1, I believe. I'm pretty sure black is okay here. Now I am tempted to check with the engine. I think I will go ahead and just see, is this at all winning for white? No, black equalizes with rook c2. So it's good to just be aware of the opponent's counter tricks, despite my my time advantage. And instead of going into that line, I very calmly play king to b1, just getting the king off the c file and now preparing queen f5 and the eventual rook d7. So I was trying to just make things really difficult for my opponents and just create possibilities where it would be easy for my opponent to blunder. But the game still goes on. King b7 was played. I play queen f5, threatening rook d7 now. He plays king b6. I move back to d3. And after rook e7, I found a nice way to just make progress on the queen side. Looks like the king should be exploitable, but I mean, my rooks and queen are pretty much fully optimized. So the way to make progress here is with a pawn break. And the break I went for is pawn a4. Not only making loot for my own king, but just trying to destabilize black structure. And after takes queen d4, king b7 takes. Now the king is just a bit more airy. And yeah, we're going to see how quickly this goes downhill for black. After queen b6, I play rook to d3. Now I'm completely okay leaving my back rank open, not scared of the checks because I'm just ready to play rook b3 and tuck the king away on a2. And the game ended in a couple more moves. After king a7, rook b3, queen c7. I think this is a final blunder, but it was already difficult for black. I played queen to d4 check, and my opponent resigned here because if king a8, then I play rook d8, and I'm winning the queen. The king is completely boxed in the corner. So this was the first game. I think it was relatively smooth. It was a nice bit of opening preparation, especially to play a line that I haven't played before. Got a nice position, and my opponent, I think, was just uncomfortable out of the opening and just didn't handle things correctly. If there's one like big improvement for black, it was probably around here, just choosing a different plan. H4 was already a bit overextending. So according to the engine, black is still fine after b4, knight 2, yeah, a5, and it's definitely a fight from this position. So anyway, I hope people enjoyed this recap. Stay tuned for the next game. It's 6:12, so the next game starts in 48 minutes. It's time to eat and prepare, and yeah, thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.